The office always looked better in sunlight. By noon, the glass walls threw back streaks of gold across the floors, the city below glimmering like it had something to prove. I liked it that way. Everything bright, sharp, and under control. I'd built my career on that illusion. Clarity, direction, discipline. Then he walked in. He wasn't supposed to notice me the way he did, at least not that quickly. But the first time he leaned against the conference table, sleeves rolled up, black shirt half unbuttoned like he'd just decided formality was overrated, I felt the smallest betrayal inside my chest, my pulse skipping where it should have stayed steady. He was part of the new design team we'd hired for the product relaunch. 23, maybe 24. Confident in that way only the young can be, like the world would rearrange itself just to see what he'd do next. He called me ma'am at first. I told him not to. You make it sound like I run a boarding school, I'd said. He smiled then, an easy, unguarded kind of smile that showed dimples and trouble. Okay, he said, voice lower than necessary. What should I call you instead? I pretended to focus on the mock-ups on his tablet. Use my name, everyone else does, but not everyone said it like that. There was something about the way he lingered after meetings. Always the last to leave, always one more question, half about the project, half about me. How do you stay so calm when the clients start panicking? He asked once when the rest of the room had emptied. Experience, I said, and caffeine. He tilted his head, studying me. No, it's more than that. You don't just stay calm, you make everyone else calm. It's like gravity or something. I laughed it off, but my throat felt tight. Are you trying to flirt your way into a promotion? Maybe, he said, not blinking. That should have been my cue to end it, to remind him of boundaries, professionalism, the whole handbook of things women like me are supposed to recite. But I didn't. I let the silence stretch, felt the weight of his eyes on me, and wondered how it had suddenly become hard to breathe in a room full of light. By the end of the week, I caught myself looking for him. Ridiculous things, the sound of his voice down the hallway, the reflection of his shirt in the elevator glass, that spark of irreverence whenever he challenged me in meetings. He didn't treat me like an authority figure. He treated me like a mystery he intended to solve. And I, God help me, was starting to want to be solved. One afternoon, we were reviewing layouts in the main conference room. The sunlight slanted through the blinds in clean golden lines, catching the edges of the screens and his profile beside me. I leaned over to point at something on his laptop, my sleeve brushing his wrist. The contact was nothing. Barely there, but it might as well have been a live wire. He froze. So did I. When I looked up, his gaze had already found mine. The air between us thickened, heavy with all the words neither of us could speak. I straightened, forcing the distance back. Send me the revised file by tonight. He didn't move. Sure, he said softly. If you promise to read it before you go home. I always do. Yeah, he murmured. That's what I'm afraid of. I turned toward the window, pretending to study the skyline. But my reflection betrayed me. Flushed cheeks, parted lips, eyes that didn't look like mine anymore. After that, I tried to avoid him. I delegated meetings, skipped coffee breaks, even pretended to be busy on calls just to keep from talking to him. It didn't work. He started finding excuses, small, harmless reasons that stacked up into something undeniable, a technical glitch he needed me to check, a client question only I could answer. Once he left a note on my desk, just a sticky pad, but the handwriting was quick and confident. You missed the best part of the meeting. Don't worry, I'll fill you in later. Later never came, but I kept the note anyway. The turning point wasn't a grand confession. It wasn't even planned. It was a Tuesday, too bright to feel dangerous. We were the last ones in the office, finishing the final presentation slides for the launch. The city outside buzzed with late traffic and sunlight on glass, but inside it was just us, the hum of the AC, the soft click of his keyboard, and something humming low between us. He stood beside my chair, pointing at the screen. If we move this tagline down... He stopped mid-sentence. I realized then how close he was. His cologne, clean, faintly citrus, wrapped around the moment. My breath caught before I could stop it. His hand hovered near mine, not touching. just there, waiting. "You're doing it again," I said quietly. He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes this time. "Doing what?" "Flirting." He didn't look away. "You think that's what this is?" "I know it is. Then why haven't you told me to stop?" The room went silent. Outside, a siren wailed and faded into the distance, because I didn't want him to stop. Because I hadn't wanted that for weeks. Because pretending indifference had become exhausting. He took a slow breath. "You keep pretending this doesn't exist." "But it does. You know it does." His words sank deep, the kind that echo long after they're spoken. I met his gaze, steady and unapologetic. "This," I said, voice low, "can't happen." "Then why does it feel like it already is?" The truth hit like sunlight, too bright, too real. Something inside me gave way. The discipline, the restraint, the years of being the composed woman in charge, they all cracked under the weight of wanting. I stood, turning to face him fully. "You need to go home," I said, even as I stepped closer. "Do you want me to?" He asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because my hand had already found the edge of his collar, fingers brushing the open button, the heat of his throat. His breath hitched, and the distance between us vanished. The kiss wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. It wasn't wild or desperate. It was a confession, the kind that unravels quietly, finally, when silence becomes unbearable. When I pulled back, his eyes were wide, searching mine for an explanation I didn't have. I swallowed hard. "We crossed a line," he nodded slowly. "Yeah, but maybe it was the right one." The city lights flickered through the windows, casting us in streaks of gold and silver. I could still taste the moment, still feel the heat between us, still hear my heartbeat where my logic should have been. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel in control. I felt alive. After that night, nothing in the office looked the same. The desks, the hallway, even the quiet hum of the printer, everything held the echo of that kiss. It lived in the air, in the way our eyes caught for a second too long, in the pauses that used to mean nothing and now meant everything. We didn't speak about it. Not directly. We were too smart for that. Two people who knew what was at stake and tried to pretend we didn't. But desire doesn't vanish when you ignore it. It just changes shape. He was careful at first, professional, polite, but underneath the surface, something restless shimmered. His glances found me in meetings. His laughter, when it came, was just a bit too soft if I was the one who made the joke. I kept my tone even. My posture straight, my voice steady. But my hands betrayed me. They lingered near my coffee mug, fingertips tapping too fast, as if the energy between us was electric enough to need somewhere to go. And then, one afternoon, he walked into my office without knocking. The light was hitting the blinds just right, stripes of gold across the walls. I was reviewing the final campaign pitch, pretending to focus on numbers, not nerves. "Close the door," I said, without looking up. He did. The soft click felt like a heartbeat. "Something wrong?" I asked, finally glancing at him. He stood there, black shirt, top button undone, sleeves rolled. Sunlight caught the fine edge of stubble on his jaw. And for a second, I forgot every professional line I'd ever drawn. "You've been avoiding me," he said. "I've been busy." That's not what I asked. I tried to hold his gaze, but his calmness disarmed me. He wasn't teasing now. There was sincerity in his tone, quiet and certain. "You think I didn't notice?" he said, stepping closer. "How you walk out of meetings before I can talk to you. How you send someone else to give me feedback. It's called boundaries," I said, my voice low. "No," he murmured, stopping just short of my desk. "It's called fear." My pulse jumped. "Excuse me." He leaned forward, resting his palms on the edge of my desk. The sunlight poured across his arms, the city humming behind him. "You think I don't see it? You think I don't feel it too?" His words hung there, weightless, dangerous. I wanted to deny it. To remind him who I was, what this was. But all that came out was the truth, raw and quiet. "You're playing with fire. He smiled faintly. Then burn with me. I stood up so fast my chair rolled back a few inches. The space between us dissolved. He didn't move. Neither did I. You have no idea what you're doing, I said. Then show me, he whispered. There it was. The undoing of restraint. The air shifted. The light between us seemed to vibrate. I didn't reach for him this time. He didn't dare close the gap. We just stood there. Two people fighting gravity and losing. Finally, I turned away, pressing a hand against the cool glass window. The city glowed in the afternoon light. Taxis, people, the pulse of everything I was supposed to care about. I can't, I said softly. I'm not 20 anymore. I know how this ends. He stepped closer, his reflection merging with mine in the glass. Maybe it doesn't have to end the same way. His voice was steady, his words simple, but they broke something open inside me. I closed my eyes. You should go. He didn't. Say it, he whispered. If you really want me to leave, say it. I turned then, finally meeting his gaze. And I couldn't. Because I didn't want him to. That silence, thick and alive, said everything. After that, resistance became theater. We went through the motions of professionalism, but the edges kept blurring. His messages lingered past work hours, short, casual, but loaded. You left your notes on my desk, or you looked like you needed a real coffee today. Little things. But every one of them carried the same subtext. I'm thinking of you. I'd type responses, delete them, retype them again. It wasn't what I said, it was what I didn't. The things I wanted to say and couldn't. Then one evening, after a client dinner, we ended up waiting together for the elevator. Everyone else had gone. The lobby lights gleamed against marble floors. And outside, the city was still awake, drenched in gold and noise. He looked at me. Not like a subordinate, not like a colleague, like someone who'd been patient long enough. The elevator doors opened, but neither of us moved. You should go first, I said. He shook his head. Ladies first. His tone was teasing, but his eyes weren't. I stepped in. He followed. The doors slid shut, and suddenly it was just us. The faint hum of machinery, the mirror-polished walls reflecting too much truth. I tried to focus on the floor numbers ticking down, not the way his arm brushed mine. Not the way my body leaned, almost imperceptibly, toward the heat of him. When the elevator stopped, he reached out before I could step out, his hand warm and sure, on my wrist. Tell me you don't feel this, he said. I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but lying would have been worse than admitting it. I feel it, I said finally. That's the problem. His hand slid away, slow, reluctant. Then maybe it's the answer. The doors opened. He didn't follow me this time, but I could feel his gaze all the way down the hallway. For days, I replayed that look. It haunted my sleep, my mornings, my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I'd built a life on self-control, on staying ahead of every impulse. And now, one man half my age had me second-guessing everything. And yet, I didn't regret it. I saw him again that Friday morning. Sunlight filled the conference room, turning the table into a pool of white and gold. He arrived early, like he always did, setting up slides, humming softly under his breath. When I walked in, he straightened, that easy grin flickering. Morning, he said. Morning. We worked side by side, pretending calm, but beneath it all, the current was there. Stronger now, steadier, impossible to ignore. At one point, I reached for the same file he did. Our hands brushed. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged. Sacred. He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his eyes made me forget how to breathe. I meant what I said. He murmured. About what? About this. About us. There is no us, I said, though it sounded weak even to me. He smiled, the kind of smile that made you want to stop pretending. Then why do you look at me like there is? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because in that moment, with sunlight spilling across his face, with the city shimmering outside, with my heartbeat loud enough to drown reason. There was no more pretending left to do. He took a step closer. I didn't step back. That afternoon, we didn't talk about projects or timelines. We talked about everything else, about what scared us, what we wanted, what we'd lost along the way. He told me he admired my certainty. I told him I wasn't nearly as certain as I seemed. We laughed. We fell quiet. We let silence do the rest. And somewhere between one breath and the next, surrender stopped feeling like weakness. It started feeling like truth. When he left that day, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. Because when our eyes met across the glass, we both knew, whatever line we'd crossed, there was no going back. And I didn't want to. I always thought control was my safety net. Every plan, every polished answer, every rule, it was all built to protect me from chaos. But desire doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the right moment. It just happens. And when it did, my world shifted. Quietly, completely, irreversibly. After that Friday, I couldn't keep pretending. Neither could he. The walls we'd built around our connection were gone, and every conversation felt like stepping too close to something dangerous and beautiful at once. But life doesn't pause just because you've fallen for someone you shouldn't. People noticed. Not in ways they could prove, but in glances, in questions wrapped in casual tones. "You two seem close," one of my colleagues said during a coffee break, a smile playing at her lips. "He really looks up to you?" I smiled back, careful, calm. "He's talented. That's all." But later, alone in my office, I caught my reflection in the window, the faint curve of a smile that wasn't professional at all. He started avoiding me then, just enough to make it hurt. Meetings went through email, updates came through someone else. It should have been a relief, but it felt like a withdrawal, the kind that leaves you restless for what used to be. So I did what I always do when things start slipping. I buried myself in work. Late nights, long hours glowing screens. I tried to convince myself that what happened between us was a mistake. A brief moment of weakness. Something that didn't belong in the daylight. But every time I passed the design department and saw that empty chair at the far desk, something inside me ached. One evening, just as the city was melting into golden light, I heard a knock on my door. He stepped in, hesitating for the first time since I'd met him. The usual confidence was gone, replaced by something quieter. "I didn't want to text," he said. I looked up from my laptop, pulse already racing. "You could have, I know, but I didn't want you to ignore it." He leaned against the doorway, that familiar black shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Sunlight caught on his hair, turning it copper at the edges. "People are starting to talk," he said softly. "About us," I sighed. "Let them talk. They don't know anything," he shook his head. "It's not that simple. You've worked too hard to have people question your judgment." I stood, closing the distance between us. "My judgment isn't what's in question, is it?" He met my eyes steady. "You're worried about me." "I'm worried about both of us." The silence that followed was heavy with truth. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Maybe I should transfer." The word hit me like cold air. "Transfer?" "To another branch. Just for a while, until this dies down." I wanted to say yes, the logical thing, the safe thing, but my throat closed around the word. Instead, I said, "And what happens when you leave?" He gave a half smile. "You go back to being you, in control." I took a step closer. "What if I don't want to go back?" He blinked, searching my face. "Then what do you want?" It was the question I'd been avoiding for weeks, and now that it was in the air, I couldn't escape it. I looked out at the skyline, glass towers glowing under the last of the sun, and realized that the answer wasn't as complicated as I'd made it. "I want something real," I said quietly, "even if it doesn't fit anyone else's idea of right." He smiled then, small and certain. "Then let's stop hiding." The next few days felt like walking through sunlight after a long tunnel. We didn't announce anything, didn't make grand declarations. We just stopped pretending. He'd stop by my office in the mornings, coffee in hand, Sometimes our fingers brushed when he passed me a file. Sometimes his smile lingered a second too long. Small things. Quiet rebellions against everything we'd been told to be. There was freedom in that. Not recklessness, but honesty. Still, the world wasn't kind. Rumors spread. Whispers followed. A senior partner called me in for a friendly chat, his tone too polite to be genuine. "Perception matters," he said, folding his hands. "You're an example to the younger staff." "You understand," I nodded, "because that's what women like me do. We nod, we apologize, we absorb blame we didn't ask for." But when I walked out of that meeting, something inside me had shifted again. Because love shouldn't feel like something you have to hide to keep your dignity intact. That evening, I found him in the break room packing up his laptop. He looked up, reading my face immediately. "They talked to you, didn't they?" "They did," I said, "and?" And I told them I wasn't ashamed. His eyes widened, then softened. "You said that?" "I did." He smiled, the kind that reached all the way to his eyes. "Guess that means we're not pretending anymore." "No," I said. "We're not." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You sure you're ready for that?" I've never been more sure. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the windows gold. The city lights flickered to life, and for the first time, I didn't feel trapped by them. I felt seen. A few weeks later, we were both assigned to a new project, one that meant fewer eyes on us, more space to breathe. It wasn't perfect. There were still stares, still quiet judgments, still the awareness of how people love to whisper about women who dared to want. But every time he laughed across a meeting table, or brushed my hand in passing, or caught my eye in that unspoken way, it felt worth it. Love had stopped being a risk. It had become a choice. One Sunday morning, months later, I found him waiting for me outside the office. Sunlight bright on his shoulders. 2 coffees in hand. "You work too much," he said. Handing me one. "I like working," I teased. He grinned. "Yeah, but I like you better when you're not hiding behind it." I laughed. The kind of laugh that comes when you finally stop fighting your own heart. We walked together down the street, the city wide awake around us. The world still had its opinions, but for once I didn't care. Because every step beside him felt like a declaration that love doesn't need permission. It just needs truth. And as sunlight broke across the buildings, glinting off glass and metal and all the sharp edges of the life I'd built, I realized something simple. Something that would have terrified me before, but now felt like freedom. I didn't need to be in control to be strong. I just needed to be honest. He looked over, smiling that familiar smile. "You're thinking too much again?" "Maybe," I said, smiling back. "Or maybe I'm just finally thinking about the right things." He reached for my hand. This time I didn't hesitate. The city kept moving, bright and loud and alive around us, and for the first time in a long time, so was I. If you felt that pull, that quiet tension between control and surrender, tell me in the comments what moment hit you the hardest. Tap the star, follow, and subscribe. More daylight love stories are coming, filled with glances, confessions, and the kind of connection that refuses to fade. Stay for the next one. Love always finds its way back into the light.